that was the banking sector. But it's an interesting story of how China reformed itself, because clearly China will, it also tells us how China is going to have to address some of its problems coming forward. Again, there's great talk about China needs reform. China's going to have a convertible currency in 5 years or whatever it may be. Well, you can think that all you like, but there's no way it's going to happen as we generally understand it in convertible currencies in the West. It's also not going to make any sense when you look historically at how China has developed going forward and sort of piecemeal reforms. There's no one in China who's got basically the wherewithal or the guts or the political sort of tailwinds behind them to try and make those sorts of decisions. So clearly China's role going forward and whatever they do, it's going to be much more piecemeal. And while they may be able to add to their, pardon me, well, they can expand their markets, they can have more bells and whistles, fundamentally things won't necessarily have changed. And I think you see this when you look at the stock market in particular, that if you look at what in 20 years, the difference in terms of size, in terms of product, in terms of investor type, etc. in the stock market is night and day difference from where it was in the early 90s. But if you look at fundamentally what the market is, it probably looks very similar to where it was about 15 years ago. There was just a few weeks back, you had the CSRC, the rumor in the market, whether it was true or not is almost irrelevant. But the market believed it to be true that the CSRC were calling up brokerage houses saying, what are you doing? What are you doing in your proprietary books? Are you buying or selling? We're looking for stability over the party Congress. Okay? Are we still at that stage in China? These are some of the world's largest companies, one of the most liquid markets in Asia, which certainly used to trade more in China alone than in the rest of Asia combined on a daily basis. And yet we still have this market where it needs to be basically directed and mollycoddled and pampered by the regulator on a daily basis. And so even with all these grand mega listings, the fundamental nature of China or the Chinese markets hasn't necessarily changed. And that's not to say there aren't opportunities there, but I think we need to be very cautious about what we can do in China and be very understanding of what can be done for my business in China, rather than necessarily hang back to this, but China's growing at 10%. China has 300 middle-class people, or whatever it may be. Because when you actually get on the ground and trying to do things as financial investors or as just as financial enterprises in China, it's generally much, much harder